Eonwe didn't answer, as two of the Valar suddenly appeared before them. Finrod instantly recognized Namo and Este. Namo stepped forward, bending down next to the still Maya, and gently ran a hand down his spine, obviously checking for injury. There didn't seem to be any, as the Maya moved almost imperceptibly, and Namo gently rolled him over onto his back before picking him up. Meanwhile, Este had been busy setting up 2 chairs, a low-padded table, and other equipment she might need, assisted by Eonwe. When they were finished, Eonwe bowed to her and left. Finrod realized that he was the only one still there, other than the 2 Valar and the fallen Maya, but unless he was specifically asked to leave, he had no intention of going anywhere. Namo brought Sauron over to where Este had set up her equipment, and gently laid him on the table. Closer, Finrod could see the Maya was a mess. The chains were stained with old and new blood, as was almost every inch of exposed skin. He could also hear the unusual sounds in the Maya's breathing that meant a punctured lung.
"All right, little one, let's get you out of these,"
Namo murmured softly, grasping the thick collar around Sauron's neck. A resounding crack could be heard as it split under the Vala's hands, and he carefully removed it. He continued moving down the Maya's body, removing the chains that held him. Sauron didn't react until Namo removed the binding on his arms, and they changed position. Then he cried out, softly, but obviously in pain.
"I know, child,"
Este soothed.
"but we have to get you out of these chains."
Sauron said nothing, simply continued to breathe too quickly, his lips beginning to take a bluish tinge as the damage to his ribs and lungs prevented him from getting enough air. As more of the Maya's ravaged form was revealed, the more grim the 2 Valar became. When his crushed ribcage was finally free, Este quickly placed her hands on it, and Finrod could hear the sound of bones shifting, before Sauron cried out again.
"You have to be able to breathe if you have any hope of keeping this form,"
Este said gently. Meanwhile, Namo was getting to the end of the chains, simply slipping off the ones that had bound his ankles. Then he moved back to the Maya's head, laying one hand against the side of his face, the other over his heart.
"You must steady your heartbeat and your breathing, child,"
Namo said. From the sounds of his breathing, Sauron tried to comply, but wasn't very successful. Este continued to work, apparently repairing internal damage, but the frustration on her face made it clear it was not going as she had hoped. As time wore on, he struggled for breath more and more, and his weak cries came more and more often. Finally, Este stopped and looked at Namo with tired resignation in her eyes. Namo nodded and removed his hand from the Maya's chest.
"You need to let go now,"
he told the Maya, stroking his face.
"You cannot sustain this form any longer. It is too damaged. The longer you hold on to it, the more you will injure yourself. It'll be all right, little one, but you have to let go."
Sauron whimpered at that, apparently terrified.
"I'm scared of dying."
The small whisper of thought surprised Finrod, who realized that his image of Sauron before this day was remarkably one-dimensional.
"I know,"
Namo said gently.
"It will be all right. Let go."
With a shuddering sigh, the Maya complied, and the damaged form disappeared in a shower of sparks that made Finrod glance away briefly. When he was able to look again, Este and the table were gone, and Namo was carefully lifting the tattered scraps of a Fëa into his arms. Finrod had seen wounded Fëa during his time in Mandos, including his own, but had never seen one so ravaged. It apparently had once been golden, but very little of it still was. Parts were now red and orange, as if the gold had been distorted, but most was covered in a choking darkness. Overall, It had the appearance it had been shredded.
Hurts.
The soft thought was accompanied by a small sob.
I know.
Nemo's answering thought was gentle, so it shocked Finrod when Sauron yelped in fear and fled, coming to stop beside the elf and curling up protectively before seeming to study him.
Know you.
The Maya mused. Then the memories seemed to connect, and Finrod had the interesting experience of seeing their duel through his opponent's eyes. The memories flashed on, to his defeat at the hands and teeth of Luthien and Huan, to the dreadful summons from Morgoth to explain that loss, and the torment he was put to because of it. Finrod stared in horror at the broken Maya, who barely shivered at the memories.
Why can't I think?
Sauron was frustrated. Finrod could feel that his thoughts were broken and distorted, and he was having trouble processing what was going on.
It's a dream. I want to wake up. Dreams. Dreams. Olorin! Where's Olorin? I want my brother.
Again there was a deluge of memories, and Finrod watched Sauron's heart break as his brother discovered his treachery, and he fled the bliss of Valinor. With nowhere else to go, he turned towards Middle-earth, and the Vala he served out of fear.
Oh, hates me.
There were tears audible in the Maya's mental voice now, and he seemed to curl up tighter in desolation.
Hurts!
The heartbroken wail ended in a sob, and Finrod's heart clenched. Surely there was something that could be done to help him.
I know, little one. Come here and I can help you.
Finrod was shocked by the sudden, innate desire Sauron had to obey Nemo's gentle command. He had always assumed that the Maiar were simply accustomed to obeying the Valar, and that was what fueled their instinctive obedience. Now he realized it was truly that, instinctive. But the Maya was wary and resisted the urge, studying the matter.
Could be the truth.
Sauron reasoned, and Finrod's heart clenched again as the Maya shoved away the hope that rose with that statement.
Or he could just hurt me more, but I couldn't take that it would destroy me. Then the pain would end.
He continued, before addressing Namo directly.
You'll make the pain stop?
I will, little one. Come here.
This time, Sauron didn't resist the urge to obey, and shot across the space separating him from the Vala. He gave a soft sigh of relief as the pain was suspended. Not truly gone, but blocked. Namo let him rest, gently cradling him.
Little one.
He finally asked Sauron softly. Sauron raised his head, looking at Namo.
Yes?
He answered.
I can make the pain stop completely, but it will hurt you considerably before I finish.
Namo said. Sauron seemed to cower back slightly at that, an odd resignation filling him. Namo could do as he wished, and Sauron knew perfectly well he could not stop him.
You are right, though I wish you had never come to understand that. But this truly is your choice. I will not act unless you wish me to.
Namo said sincerely. Sauron took the mental equivalent of a large breath.
I'm scared,
He admitted.
but I want the pain to end. I care not how anymore.
Namo gently ran a hand over the broken Maya, then picked up a small golden ring from beside him. Finrod winced and wished he had left when he had a chance. He had a vague idea of what was going to happen next, and it was not something he wanted to witness. He clapped his hands over his ears as the Maya began screaming, but it did no good, as the sound was mental, not audible. The agonized screams continued until Finrod was seriously contemplating throwing away both pride and dignity and simply sprinting as fast as he could in the other direction. Finally, however, they stopped, and Finrod looked back to find Sauron limp in Nemo's arms, ring nowhere to be seen. He was now completely golden, though some parts of him were so faint as to appear transparent. It almost seemed as if the Vala had scoured his soul to remove the darkness. Finrod flinched slightly at that idea. Namo was stroking the exhausted Maya gently, compassion on his face as he watched him. Finrod could feel as Sauron's thoughts slowed and stilled, his world narrowing to the soft, comforting touch. As Sauron relaxed completely, he began to hum, a soft note of contentment. It surprised Finrod, however, for even though Sauron was not incarnate, the note was perfectly audible.
We did sing the universe into existence,
Sauron said with slight amusement, having caught Finrod's shock.
I didn't realize that was literal,
Finrod said in amazement.
Well, it is slightly more complicated than that.
Sauron allowed.
But if you had been around then, you would have been able to actually hear us.
Finrod had drawn closer during this conversation, and was now studying the Maya.
I thought we couldn't see you in your natural state,
he said. Sauron gave a mental shrug.
Most Maiar habitually hide themselves when unclad,
he explained, yawning.
I have no reason to do so, and I'm too tired to try anyway.
I see,
Finrod murmured. He reached out a hand before abruptly pulling it back. He had no idea if he could even touch Sauron, let alone what the Maya would think of that.
Go ahead.
The young Maya murmured.
As exhausted as I am, I won't even burn you.
Finrod shot Sauron a look as the Maya gave off a distinct air of mischievousness. Deciding Namo would have stopped him if he was doing anything detrimental to either himself or the Maya, he gently reached out and rested a hand on Sauron's side. He couldn't quite make sense of the sensations he received. It was as if the air had thickened so much that it became solid, as well as filled with an intense heat. The Maya was barely cool enough for Finrod to touch him and not wish to pull his hand away.
The Maya have missed their purpose,
Finrod said lightly, daring to carefully stroke his hand down the broken Maya.
They would make excellent rugs and cauldrons and nuts.
Rugs.
The thought was tinged with both amusement and incredulity.
Finrod grinned, slightly sheepishly.
Just a thought,
he said.
It would be dreadfully boring to be a rug.
I wouldn't have any idea about that.
You should try it sometime. Spend a day as a rug, just to see what people would say to that.
I think I will.
Finrod Felagund, King of Nargothrond, Crown Prince of the Noldor, and rug. It has a nice ring to it, don't you think?
I think you're crazy.
It's entirely possible. I've never claimed sanity.
Which is a good thing, as I doubt it would claim you.
No, probably not.
The moment of levity passed, and Finrod continued to stroke the exhausted Maya as he lapsed into a contemplative silence.
My lord,
he finally addressed Namo.
What is to be his fate? Surely knowing what we know now, it won't be. He won't be sentenced to.
No,
Namo said gently. Both Finrod and Sauron relaxed, the latter having tensed considerably when Finrod had asked his question.
No,
Namo repeated.
The decision has been reached and he will be coming with me.
Finrod smiled at that. Others might think that was not an enviable fate, but Finrod knew better. Sauron would be well taken care of.
Good,
Finrod said.
I will have to come visit.
As long as you don't die again to do so.
Namo retorted, standing. Finrod laughed. Sauron smiled, and Namo took himself and his new charge back to Mandos, leaving Finrod to contemplate just how everything had now changed. The end.